Welcome to this episode of Healthy Conversations, brought to you by Athens Limestone Hospital, where we bring you expert insight on the topics that matter most to your health and your family. I'm Susan Claiborne, joined by Karina Farr, and today we're focusing on our children's health as they head back to school. From routine wellness visits and vaccinations to emotional well being and school readiness, supporting our kids takes a proactive approach. We're joined by Jennifer, certified pediatric nurse practitioner, to walk us through what parents need to know to help their children stay healthy, happy, and confident all school year long. Jennifer, thank you for being here today. We know it takes a lot to be out of your clinic over at Tots and Teens today. I know they're missing you for a little while, but we appreciate you being here. And I know as a certified pediatric nurse practitioner, that's kind of a little different than what most people think of as a nurse practitioner. So you specifically chose to kind of narrow down to pediatrics. So kind of just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what made you choose to specialize in pediatrics.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me here today. I've really been looking forward to it. So, I think my love for kids probably started when I was a kid myself, from the time of just wanting to work in the church nursery so I could hold the babies, to babysitting when I was a teenager, and then deciding to go into the nursing profession. I just always wanted to target my focus in pediatrics. And so I did all of my preceptorships and things like that targeted in peds. And then once I started working as a pediatric nurse, I really had a desire to just be able to further my career and be able to help more kids because it's just a population that's really special to me.
Well, and working with pediatrics, you obviously knew going into it that not only were you taking care of and healing and caring for little babies and children, but that also meant the addition of parents and grandparents and whoever else comes along with them to their appointments that you had to
Absolutely.
establish some relationships with. So, as we kind of dive into this, maybe let's just start off with what's kind of most common. Um, I don't know, question or issue that you find yourself with talking to parents about these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think parents come in, and when we come in for these visits, whether it's a well visit or a sick visit, they just want to know, is my child okay? Either from a healthy perspective or if they're sick, what is it going to take to get them better? And so most of the time, that's what our visits are really geared towards, just addressing whatever concern the parents come in with. But I would say those are probably the most common things. They just want to know if their overall well-being is intact, and what can we do to keep it that way?
Yeah, and with it, almost being back to school time, which is crazy that it's already time to go back to school, what common concerns do you hear around that? Do you see an uptick in sickness when kids get back to school around each other, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, summers are our biggest time for our wellness visits. We're getting everybody ready for back to school, and parents come in, armed with those questions. How can we keep our kiddos the healthiest, with school starting back? Because we do see a huge increase in the swapping of germs from all the little ones. Everybody just can't wash their hands enough during the day. And so we see a really large uptick probably about 3 or 4 weeks after school starts, and that's when all of the germs seem to come back into play.
So, what is your answer when they ask how they can keep their kids as well with all the
Yeah.
germs?
Yeah, I think just keeping your kids' nutrition up to par, making sure that they're having a steady sleep schedule, they're getting plenty of rest every night, that they're eating healthy foods, packing healthy lunches, and then just making sure that they're washing their hands as much as possible, teaching them that whenever you go to the bathroom, make sure you don't leave without doing that, and just trying not to be around any unnecessary germs.
And so, this is a big time for wellness visits. So, what age do you see? Newborn to,
Newborn through up to 21 years of age.
okay.
Yeah, and so each of those visits, encompasses something different, and for the little ones, we start out with, developmental screens because, every mom wants to make sure their baby's meeting those milestones. They're crawling when they're supposed to be crawling, they're walking when they're supposed to be walking, talking when they're supposed to be talking, so we have a lot of, questionnaires and things like that in place to kind of help guide us along the way for the infancy through 5 years of age. And then that's in order to target, any sort of concerns that parents might have so that we can jump on top of that. So when they do start to school, that they're ready for school in the best manner possible.
So, with these wellness visits, do you do hearing and vision screenings and things as part of that too?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so all babies are supposed to have a newborn hearing screen before they leave the hospital, and, we make sure if they didn't pass that, that they have follow-up on that. And then once again, when they hit around 4 years of age, we start doing hearing and vision screens, yearly. They get a hearing screen from ages 4 to 10 as recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and then every child 4 and up gets a vision screen when they come into the office.
Well, we're talking also in that you were talking about their overall health. So that includes kind of their mental health. And I know you've been doing this for many years. So have you noticed a difference in mental health? Is it just more of a focus or are we seeing issues with it more? What's your feelings on that?
Sure. I do think we see a lot more of it, than say 20 years ago, just because of the addition to technology, all the social media that kids have, all the exposure that they have to things that just didn't used to be issues. And so there's a lot more concern for their, anxiety related to these things. Kids are seeing their friends post online all the time. There's a lot of, that fear of missing out when they see their friends posting about stuff. And so parents do have a lot more concern for, anxiety and other sort of issues that can be related to behavioral health with their kids.
Yeah, and how, do you see that change with school starting back? Is there a shift there as well? Do you think it's positive to be back around people, or do you see more of an uptick in those mental health concerns when school starts back?
Yeah, I think when school starts back, it's nice because people and the kids especially can have more face-to-face interaction with each other. They don't have to rely on their phones. And, with this new bill that's come out, the schools are not going to be allowed to have, students aren't allowed to have their cell phones or any electronic devices, which I think is going to be a turn for the positive because there's going to be a lot less distraction for the kids in that realm.
I have noticed that recently. So I'm sure that will be um, kind of that first bit of school until everybody gets used to it, kind
Mhm.
of, I don't want to say controversy. I just think there'll just be a lot of talk about it. Yeah, it'll be an adjustment. Exactly.
Yeah, and
It'll
I
be an adjustment.
definitely think, like you said, the uptick of social media and things makes it so much different. Because even, for me, it kinda came out when I was in middle school and high school, but at that point, it was so different than it is now. It was a lot more casual, it was a lot more just kind of keeping up with your friends, and you weren't really worried about what you posted, and it wasn't that serious. I
Mhm.
can't imagine with what social media is now being, in middle school or in such formative years and having access to all of that. So I think it's really important that we do talk about with that age,
Mhm.
you know.
So, what are some red flags when that you can suggest for parents to kind of pay attention to, if there is kind of maybe the start of some mental health issues, some anxiety or depression? Maybe what are some red flags for parents to notice?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know your child best. Parents know when their behavior is off. Your parent radar goes off. Like there's something wrong with my child, and even though you may not be able to pinpoint exactly what it is, just making sure that you talk to them, have some open communication, keep the lines open where they feel safe talking to you about all the different things. But I think their behavior is probably the number one red flag. If they're more withdrawn, they're shying away from activities and things that they used to love to do. Those are times that it's always important to, seek help, seek out your pediatrician or your pediatric nurse practitioner or your doctor's office just to, kind of address those issues and utilize the resources that are there for them.
Yeah, I think as a parent with my kids, the norm was when I picked them up from school. I used to say I knew what was going on in the classroom because when I'd pick them up, they just kind of told it all, I guess, in the back seat, that conversation. They couldn't stop talking. So I definitely think I would have noticed if it got to where they weren't talking anymore, they weren't telling. So,
Mhm.
like you said, a parent kind of has to follow that intuition.
Yeah,
So,
and then asking them open-ended questions, not just, "How was your day?" They're gonna say, "Good," "Bad," or "Fine," is the standard answer. But, asking them, "What'd you guys talk about at lunch? What did you guys do in, Mrs. Smith's class today?" Or what just those open-ended questions that leaves them having to explain a little more and just kinda take that extra step further, and then, same thing back with parents, just making sure that you're showing interest
yeah.
in what they have to say.
I think those are really great practical tips because I was going to ask as someone with a toddler, how do we looking in the future as he gets older, when he goes to school and things, how do we make sure that our kids feel safe talking to us about things like their mental health or how they're feeling inside?
How to create that environment.
Yes, and I think those are some great tips about asking better questions to show them that you are interested.
Thanks.
That's good.
And I guess making some time for that
Mhm.
bit.
Yeah, because we all get so busy these days, and, it's really easy for, us to get caught up in you're getting off work or you're coming home and picking the kids up from school, and then you have ball practice, and then you have this, and so, establishing those other, routines of dinners together and things like that just to provide that environment where they actually have an opportunity to speak to you.
Yeah, we did a lot of the ball playing and kind of the traveling.
Mhm.
And while it was busy, I have told friends before, some of the best conversations were had in the car, on the way to and from some of those events because, they were kind of captured in the car with me
Uh-huh.
for 30, 40 minutes, sometimes an hour. So it's amazing some of the conversations we were able to have versus if we had been at home, they very well could have been in front of the TV or in their room with the door shut, whatever it was. So yeah, having those opportune times to be able to talk, even when life is busy.
Mhm.
Sometimes those car rides always seem to be the best for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, establishing kind of some healthy habits at home. What are kind of some realistic kind of habits or kind of daily routines
Mhm.
that you suggest from what you see for families?
Yeah, anytime you've got that free time, like on the weekends, I think that's a good time to prepare, and just kind of have your set schedule set for the week. All of us really kind of thrive on having a set schedule, whether, we know what time we're getting up, what time we're going to bed. There's brushing your teeth, there's, establishing that whole routine, I think is really important. And then taking that time on the weekends to prep the healthy school lunches, make sure that if you've got a whiteboard, writing out their schedules so everybody knows where we're going to be. And, if anything deviates from that, then it's a lot less anxiety that's caused from the family if everybody kind of knows where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing together.
Yeah, I agree. Communication and set bedtimes.
Mhm.
Set bedtimes definitely decrease the confusion.
Definitely.
Yes, certain time to go brush the teeth, certain time to prepare whatever you're. I know one of our things was about like setting out the clothes for the day
Mhm.
because we used to have those arguments in the morning on what we were going to wear,
That's a great tip. Yeah.
and nothing stresses you out in the morning more than everybody being upset. So
Definitely.
yeah. So yeah, we used to do the clothing routine and and it really got to where I'd have to let them pick out 2 outfits because it
Uh-huh.
never failed when they picked out 1 outfit that they woke up that morning not wanting that outfit.
Mhm.
So we kinda got to where it was 2 outfits, so
Yeah.
you had to pick one or the other that morning.
And kids like choices, they like to kind of feel like they have some control over what's going on in their life. So I think anytime that you can offer them a choice, whether it's, do you want this vegetable or this vegetable, or this outfit or that outfit in the morning. So it
Yeah.
kind of helps them to feel like they're in control of what's going on too.
Yeah, I agree. And the grocery shopping, they kinda learned,
Mhm.
about, they mine would love to pick out the apples or the bananas, and they were more likely to eat it if they kinda helped
Mhm.
pick it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a hack online that I love where someone brought character stickers to the store and, like, stuck it on the fruit or veggies. It was like, "Look, you wanna pick that one as your favorite TV show character on it," and then that was encouraging. I thought that was a really interesting
Cute.
tip to get kids
Yeah.
more excited
Definitely.
about it, like, "Oh, those are Mickey Mouse carrots," 'cause it has a sticker on it or
Mhm.
whatever, more tips like that. Encouraging healthy eating. You're talking about this vegetable or that vegetable, giving them a choice. Do you have any other tips on picky eaters on how to get them to eat? I have a toddler right now, so I think he just lives off blueberries and strawberries, honestly.
Yeah, anytime you're making meals that are, like your lasagna or your spaghetti, sometimes it's really easy in saucy things to hide vegetables, so you can grind up or cook some spinach and just kind of throw that in there. And a lot of times they don't even know that they're eating those things, but they're still getting all the healthy benefits from having those. Smoothies are one of my favorite ways to get a lot of nutrients in kids. They love having milkshakes and smoothies, and you can hide a lot of good stuff in those.
Yeah, and my mom did the spaghetti with carrots every time. We
Nice.
always had like shredded carrots cooked into our spaghetti, and to the point now where every time I eat spaghetti, I feel like I need carrots because she did that.
Yeah, I didn't realize zucchini. Zucchini goes into it so well, and I didn't realize that till I was an adult.
Yeah.
So that definitely is being able to incorporate some of those vegetables and hide them. Hide them. That is good.
Another big one for healthy habits at home, the big buzzword is screen time. All right, we all talk about. And I know growing up myself, I mean, we had screen time because we watched like cartoons and stuff all the time on the TV. But now with handheld devices, it seems to be a whole different ball game than it used to be.
Yeah.
What advice do you have on, limiting screen time? Is there an amount of screen time or what they should be watching you recommend?
Yeah. So I think the longer that you can keep from introducing screens to your kiddos, the better. Whether it's the tablet, the cell phone, I know they all want one because all their friends have one, right? But when you're talking about toddlers and especially preschool age children, if you can give them less than an hour or two in front of the screen a day, that gives them time to use their imagination. It lets them be more creative. It can expand their horizons a lot more, giving them books and other toys and safe places, to play and being outdoors when the weather is appropriate, making sure you wear sunscreen, of course, but, just providing more opportunities for them to actually be a kid. I think a lot of that has been lost with the addition of so many screens at an early age, especially now. And then thinking about through the years as they get older, it's not uncommon for kindergartners and first grades to have a cell phone now, and so
It's hard to think of.
Yeah.
it is, but I mean, you'd be surprised at how many, go to school with these phones. And, I think the older that they are, especially, they're just cognitively not really able to process all of the information that they get from these screens. And especially with social media outlets and YouTube and certain things. And then bringing up the point of parent controls, when they do have these devices, making sure that there's, only access to safe programs and things that they should be watching that are age appropriate, and parents should watch them first, and say like, okay, this is a show and I'm going to watch a few episodes of this to see if this is safe for you to watch. And they should feel comfortable with what they're allowing their children to see.
And I think it's important that we model behavior. And I guess that one's a good example of modeling behavior. But I guess that goes along with other things too, nutrition or sleep or rest time or, using our creativity or going outside. For parents to model.
With screen time, being mindful as a parent, it's hard sometimes, but putting
Yeah.
down your own screen,
Exactly.
realizing, my husband and I have had to be really mindful when we get home from work. It's like, we only get a few hours with our little one when we get home from work. Let's not spend it with our phone in our face. And it's not as easy as it sounds, unfortunately, because I think we're all a little addicted to our phones. And we've had to really be mindful and keep each other accountable. And we're like, hey, put your phone down. Or, he'll tell me to put my phone down. I'm like, oh, man, I didn't even realize I just picked it up and started scrolling out of habit.
Yeah. And next thing you know, it's 30 minutes later.
Exactly.
I never realized
It's
it.
a hard one, but it's definitely good, I think, to model that because how are you going to tell your kid they can't have their screen time when, we've got our own phone in our faces all the time. So I definitely have to work on that one myself. It's
I think we all do.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And modeling behavior, even sleep. I mean, I'm bad about staying up late, and
Mhm.
things like that. And so I can understand how important that'd be to model any of that stuff our for our children. Switching gears a little bit, August is kind of immunization awareness month.
Mhm.
And immunizations have obviously been a hot topic, but they've been something that's been around for a long time. And I know that is part of the wellness checks of getting ready to go back to school. And there are some, um, I guess you'd say, goals or set kind of age appropriateness that we kind of get certain immunizations for school.
Mhm.
So you obviously have to have a lot of conversations about that. But why are immunizations important for a child's kind of healthcare journey? Because a lot of times it's not just about like that year, it's something that's a lifelong kind of immunization.
Well, sure. There's, a long time ago before we had all of these vaccinations available to us, we had really high death rates in children. We had a decreased lifespan as a population in general because these diseases or viruses could, have epidemics and pandemics and could lead to a lot of serious illness and death. And thankfully, because of the implementation of these vaccines at an early age, then we can, you know, prevent a lot of those things from happening now.
So there is a lot of information out there about immunization. So how do you or what would you say to parents who may be nervous or kind of uncertain about the choices in the immunizations?
So the approach that I like to take with parents when they have concerns about vaccines is, just asking them having an honest conversation about what specific concerns they have, because you never know where those concerns are coming from. It could be, that there's been somebody in their family that has had a severe reaction to a vaccination in the past, and those things are rare, but they can happen. And there could also be just concerns because they've been following a Facebook group and listening to people that, really are just giving anecdotal, situations. And there's not any scientific backing for that. So, we like to see all patients at my clinic, people who decide to vaccinate their children. We always recommend that they follow the vaccination schedule set forth by the ACIP and the American Academy of Pediatrics. But, if they choose not to, there's still a reason to have their babies come in, for routine wellness visits and checkups and things. But, kind of getting to the root cause of why they're not comfortable with the vaccines, can lead to other conversations and, them being more open to, following an alternate schedule, or they could actually even decide that they want to do the routine schedule, because maybe they just haven't been as informed as necessary.
Well, I appreciate you addressing that question because I know that is kind of a difficult question, but it is kind of very important for
Mhm.
families. I know um, when my children were growing up, I was very much, whatever the doctor said, and that was kind of what we did. But times are changing and there's more information, and so
Mhm.
people do have a lot of questions. So I appreciate you
Absolutely.
allowing us to ask you that question. So, kind of in closing, if you could give parents one piece of advice or encouragement for parents who maybe are concerned or anxious about, all of a sudden you're in charge of this little life
Mhm.
and taking care of them, it can be a little overwhelming. So, kind of what would you provide?
I think just being open and honest with your healthcare provider about the concerns you have for your children, because that's what we're there for at the end of the day, is to make sure that when you come in for that wellness visit and that annual checkup, or, several times a year if you have little ones you're in, always just not being afraid to address what's really on your mind, because we don't want you to leave the office, still having questions or concerns about your child.
Yeah, and I've been told by my provider before, which I think is great, where she says, "We'll never tell you you shouldn't have brought him in." So
Exactly.
trust your gut. And if you have, a feeling you need to bring your kid in, then having a provider that is supportive of that is so important.
Yeah, and I'd much rather have a parent come in and me be able to tell them their child's okay
Right.
than for something to go on at home and then they wish they'd have brought them in later.
Yeah. being a parent's tough.
Mhm.
And, we're not perfect and we can't put them in a bubble. So things do happen. I'm one of those parents that's had to call poison control, when they've gotten into things, then, you were watching and they got into it anyway, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, no question. And I'll share this. Recently, my grandbaby, they sent us a picture and they were having their little, I think it's called Superman ice cream,
Uh-huh.
like that blue ice cream. And our kind of joke in the text message was, don't be surprised when you see the teal poop. And, you kind of learn as a mom, because I'm one of those that called on call one night, when the till poop came up and, you feel funny, but they're like, well, have they had this to drink? And have they had this? And, colored eyes.
Mhm.
And it was like, oh, yeah, they've had bubblegum ice cream. So, but that is kind of scary
Yeah.
when you don't know what to expect.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that as parents, we need to support each other.
Yes,
And no question is a dumb question.
absolutely.
And go straight to the source,
Yes.
straight to your provider for that.
Mhm.
So. Well, thank you so much again for taking time out from Tots and Teens to
Yeah,
be here
thank you.
today. We appreciate that, and I know they'll be anxious to get you back.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this important episode of Healthy Conversations. A special thank you to Jennifer for sharing her clinical expertise and compassionate perspective on how we can best care for our children, mind and body. To the parents and caregivers listening, you're not alone in this journey. Take the time to schedule that checkup, ask the questions, and prioritize your child's total wellness. And remember, building healthy habits now lays the foundation for a bright future. I'm Susan Claiborne. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time on Healthy Conversations.